I know the college football season just started, but it honestly seems as wide open as ever. And I know it's early in the year, but I feel like at this point in the year, you have an idea of who you think will win the national championship. Because most of the times, even by this early point, you have a good idea who the elite teams are and who are the teams or team that you look at and say, oh, to win a national championship, we're going to have to beat them. And this year in 2023, to me, there is an absence of that. And I kind of think that is because there's an absence of those type of elite dominant teams. I say this because before the season, if you really saw any talk show or really anybody give their opinion, they normally picked one of these four teams to win the national championship: Georgia, Alabama, Michigan, or Ohio State. Or you have some people throwing Texas, Florida State, a USC, maybe a LSU if they were feeling spicy, but those were the top four teams. And even when you look at the odds market preseason wise, those were the four teams that you normally saw at the top. And all four of those teams do not look like those dominant, elite, teams that, hey, to win, we're going to have to go through them. Yes, you still have to go through them, but it's not like, oh, we're dreading facing them. They look vulnerable. They look beatable. Like, for instance, you have a team like Georgia that looks very vulnerable and not like the same team they've been over the past 2 years. And of course, you can make an argument that maybe they are as good as they have been, but they've just been sleepwalking. I mean, something that really hurts them is that they've played UT Martin, Ball State, and South Carolina so far this year. And they, first of all, they have a really weak out of conference schedule. They don't play a ranked team till week 8, which is Florida. And I know a lot of people are going to come at them and say, but that's their fault. They didn't schedule nobody, or the SEC is just like that sometimes. Well, both are honestly not true. Georgia just got very lucky with their SEC schedule this year, in my opinion. And also, they did have a game scheduled against Oklahoma, but the SEC forced them to cancel that, given that Oklahoma is going to be in the SEC next year. So they did not want to have them playing this year and then also going to play next year, which I don't understand why that even affects anything, but they've been sleepwalking. They have yet to be tested. I mean, you could say they were tested against South Carolina, but in my opinion, they just woke up. They were down to South Carolina at halftime with Spencer Rattler looking amazing. In the second half, Spencer Rattler cannot do a thing, and they stonewalled South Carolina, as they should, saying they're not going to be tested for a while. I mean, like I said, it's week 8 when they play their first ranked opponent, and that's Florida. And Florida's currently ranked 25th, and which basically means if Florida loses another game, they're not going to be ranked for much longer, which means that they may not even get a ranked matchup till after week 8, which would probably be like Tennessee or Ole Miss. Tennessee or Ole Miss. And while I think those are pretty good teams, those are not the level of teams that Georgia's going to see in an SEC championship game. This is not the level of teams that they're going to see if they make it to the college football playoff. So, like with Georgia, I don't know. Like they have all the talent in the world and they can very well be the same team they've been, but there's also a possibility that they aren't. Mainly because the roster turnover is finally catching up to them. Them not having the same starting quarterback they've had for the past 2 years, that may hurt them. Like Carson Beck, well, I think he's a pretty good quarterback. I mean, I honestly don't know. Haven't seen what he's done when shit hits the fan. But, he should be a pretty good quarterback, but he's also hasn't been playing there. So that's something that could hurt them. Like, they're not looking like the Georgia we expect them to look or we think they should look, honestly. And I don't know what to make of that. And then what I really don't know what to make of is Alabama. Alabama is a mess right now. Like this was a team that I thought could very well find themselves in the national championship again, mainly because they were going to come into this year and have a completely different offense. They were going to run the ball a lot with their strong O-line and be able to stop people defensively, and they have yet to do that. I mean, yes, they lost to Texas, and that loss to Texas, to me personally, it's fine. It's okay to lose this early in the year when you have a team like this with a young quarterback that's yet to really play that much college football while starting. So them losing to Texas, it's a big deal, but it's also like, okay, that's fine. You have yet to get into conference play. You still control your own destiny. And then I saw what they did this past weekend. And no, they didn't lose, but they were in a dogfight against the University of South Florida. in Tampa. And it's always kind of funny to see these big Power 5 teams have to go to these Group of 5 schools. Like, it's just weird to me. Like, why is Alabama playing at USF? It's so cool, but it's so weird. But even with that being said, and even that, given the fact that there was a whole rain delay, it shouldn't have been like that. They should not have been fighting for their life against USF. They shouldn't have given up 5 sacks to the University of South Florida. They shouldn't have been unable to score at all in their first 5 drives, with their first 5 drives ending in punts until they finally got a field goal to tie the game up at 3-3. And of course, they ended up winning it 17-3. But it's like, why was it like that? This offense is really, really bad, which is making this Tommy Rees hire as your OC looking very questionable, given that he doesn't know how to use any of the quarterbacks he has. I mean, they benched Jalen Milroe, and you saw what happened. He's clearly the best quarterback they had. He's clearly better than Ty Simpson and Buckner because he was at least able to score against Texas and get something up on the board and make that game somewhat competitive. Now, they just have to find a way, in my opinion, to use Jalen Milroe to the best of his abilities. They weren't doing that when he was at quarterback. And, I mean, he's your best chance to win. And also it's evident that the players like him more. Watching that game and kind of rewatching some of the stuff, they came out there with bad effort. And a lot of that can be contributed to maybe the guy that they like being benched for no reason to me and not even being able to play. He didn't play a single snap. Alabama got some problems. This team, I know I said Georgia may be vulnerable, may or may not, we don't know. Alabama, to me, out of these 4 teams, is definitely the most vulnerable, and definitely a team that I could see dropping a few more games, given how terrible this offense look and just how many questions are around quarterback play. That is very important, especially in the SEC. And then after that, you have the 2 Big Ten teams, which is OSU and Michigan. And I mean, Ohio State, I don't really want to say too much about my questions about them because they're going to get answered. This week, they go to Notre Dame. They're going to get tested. We're going to see if that defense is for real. We're going to see how good Kyle McCord really is and what this team can do back on the big stage. I mean, they should be able to handle this nicely, given literally on offense, they're returning every starter but their quarterback. On defense, they're returning so many pieces and also adding a few in the transfer portal and also just adding guys who just had another year in the program. I mean, you got a guy like Sonny Styles who is finally starting, who literally was 17 years old playing last year or around that age. All I know is that he reclassified and should have been in high school last year, and this should be his freshman year, but instead he's a sophomore, which is interesting. So with Ohio State, it's like, I have questions for them, but they're going to get answered this week. We're going to see what they are and what they need to improve upon as the season goes along. And then you have Michigan, and I honestly have no clue what to make of them. Out of these 3 teams, they have yet to play a Power 5 opponent. They have yet to, in all 3 of those games, it looked like they were just sleepwalking, just trying to get through with it. And part of that can be because they were missing their head honcho in Jim Harbaugh. I mean, he's been suspended for, buying a kid a burger. But honestly, that's kind of inexcusable, getting out of these 4 teams, they're the only one returning their quarterback. So I don't know why they look like they're sleepwalking. Like, they've barely been able to put up over 40 points against Bowling Green. I think it was like Eastern Carolina and UNLV. Like, I don't know what to make of them. And I really don't know what to make of them because they're not going to get tested till week 10 where they have to go to Penn State. And yes, look at their schedule. Until that game, there's really nothing I'm concerned about them actually losing. And this is coming from an Ohio State fan. Even though I don't hate Michigan like a lot of Ohio State fans do, I'm very real about them. This is a pretty good football team, and they will not be tested till then. Which, for me, if I'm a Michigan fan, that's a little concerning because you want to see what your team is before week 10. Because by week 10, there's really not much you can change except for just, hey, I got to pray this magically gets better week to week. Like, yeah, out of all those teams, they have to wait the longest to get tested. So that's kind of why, in my opinion, college football seems wide open. It's a mixture of having a lot of good teams, which I'm about to talk about in a second, and also that supposed top 4 all looking extremely vulnerable. Then outside of that top 4, there are a lot of good, very good football teams. I am very hesitant to say elite because we haven't seen what these teams look like when things are serious. I mean, you got teams like Florida State that in their first game of the season against a good LSU team, and an LSU team that I still think is a really good football team. I know a lot of people have kind of, made it seem like they're not good. This is still a very talented LSU team. and they dismantled them week 1. Like, completely dismantled them. Keon Coleman has looked like the second best receiver in college football. Yes, second best because nobody's better than Marvin Harrison. And even though I'm a Ohio State fan, it's just facts. Marvin Harrison is an alien in shoulder pads. Like, I don't know what else to say about him. But Florida State looks amazing. A very, very underrated team is the Washington Huskies. Their offense is probably the most high-powered in the country, and that's saying a lot given they're in the same conference as USC. Right now, their offense is clicking on all cylinders. Michael Penix looks amazing. And last week, they went to Michigan State, and they embarrassed the Spartans. And I know the Spartans are going through a lot with the whole Mel Tucker situation, and I know, but they went in there and did what elite teams do, is they handled their business from start to finish. They had like 700 yards of total offense. Michael Penix threw for over like 300 yards in the first half, and they were up like 35-0 in the first half. They shut them down quickly like good teams should, and this offense has been looking very, very dangerous. Then you also have USC with Caleb Williams. If you have Caleb Williams, if you have Lincoln Riley, you are a threat to something. And that defense is kind of coming along. Of course, they haven't really played nobody, but that defense looks better. But a good thing for them is they're entering Pac-12 play, and the Pac-12 looks like a monster. Like, it's funny how the Pac-12 is like dissolving after this year, and they right now look like the best conference in college football. Then you also have Texas, which just did what they did against Alabama, which was very impressive. Quinn Ewers look amazing. That defense looks much, much improved, and looks like they can actually be one of their strengths. And also, Texas as a program just looks and feels different. I feel like Texas has always had the talent, and now they have the talent and the leadership in Stark. He is getting that program on track where they're looking like a true college football program. They're looking like one of the big boys, which is how they always should look because it's Texas. You know, everything's bigger in Texas. Like I said, you always have USC. Penn State is another team where they maybe finally have a quarterback in Drew Aller that can kind of match what the defense was giving them last year. And kind of, Drew Aller is the kind of quarterback that could go toe-to-toe with Ohio State if need be. And against Ohio State, it's very likely that he can be the best quarterback on the field. There's a very good chance with Penn State that in every game they play, they're going to have the best quarterback on their team. The best quarterback in the game is going to be on their team in Drew Aller. Very high on that dude, but we'll see because this week he has a pretty formidable test when they host Iowa on a 7:30 kick, which is going to be a very interesting game. Probably won't get watched because Ohio State and Notre Dame is happening at the same time, but that too. And then also you have Notre Dame, who is looking very good. Sam Hartman is looking electric. This offense is airing the ball out. They're still running the ball at a high level. Their defense is looking really, really good. College football is wide open. And that's great because, honestly, to me, it's really not fun when you know that one team is going to win it all. There's so many teams that you can make a debate that they could win it all. And I know some, I could look at it and be like, I guess, but they have a chance, and that is huge. Shoot, you could even throw a team like, hey, if we getting crazy, Utah or like North Carolina, Oregon's another team. Like, and if you're feeling really crazy, Colorado, even though I love what they're doing. I'm very happy for Deion and Shador, and I hope Travis gets more healthy after that hit he took. But that's kind of crazy. But it's open. It's open. So many teams can win the national championship that I don't even know if I feel comfortable giving a pick. Even at this point in the year, normally you should not feel comfortable, but even right now, I don't feel comfortable at all. Like, I think this is great for college football. I'm very interested to see where this goes. And also, honestly, a lot of these questions I have about who are contenders and who are not, they're going to be solved after this week. This is a big week in college football. I'm also going to be doing a video giving my predictions for this upcoming week, so stay tuned for that. I love y'all. Let me know in the comments who you think will win the national championship. Which out of these teams do you think are honestly really for real? And which ones do you think are just showing out for right now and are going to get exposed down the road? Please let me know in the comments. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe, and tell a friend to tell a friend. I love y'all. Peace.